If you grew up anywhere in America, there's a good chance you celebrated at least one birthday here. Cardboard pizza, a wall of flashing arcade games, a fistful of paper tickets, and looming over all of it, a giant animatronic rat singing happy birthday in a slightly broken robotic voice. But here's what almost nobody realized while they were dodging that singing robot. This entire pizza and arcade empire was dreamed up by the same man who gave the world Atari. And the company you actually remember? It wasn't even his. It was secretly built on the bones of his failure, bought out and buried by his own bitter rival. This is the strange, surprisingly dark story of how a video game genius built a robot empire for children, lost it, and how that empire is now quietly tearing out the very thing that made it magic. This is the rise and fall of Chuck E. Cheese.
Chuck E. Cheese, Chuck E. Cheese, when you're hungry for fun, it's Chuck E. Cheese.
To understand Chuck E. Cheese, you first have to understand the man who invented it. He was one of the founding fathers of the entire video game industry. His name was Nolan Bushnell. In the early 1970s, Bushnell co-founded a little company called Atari, and Atari basically lit the fuse on the video game revolution. Their game Pong turned coin-operated machines into a national craze. Bushnell became a legend, a Silicon Valley pioneer before that was even a common phrase. Here's a wild footnote to all of this. A young Steve Jobs actually worked for Bushnell at Atari, years before he went off and co-founded Apple. That is the level we are talking about. Bushnell was standing right at the white-hot center of the birth of the entire modern tech world, and he decided to aim all of that genius at entertaining children. But Bushnell had a problem, and an idea. The problem? In 1976, he sold Atari to Warner Communications, and not long after, he was pushed out of the very company he had built. The idea had been rattling around in his head for a while, and now he had the freedom and the money to chase it. His arcade games made the most money when they were placed where families gathered, especially around pizza places. The kids loved the games. The parents tolerated the pizza. So Bushnell asked a simple question. What if you combined them? What if you built one single place that was a pizza restaurant, an arcade, and a show all at once? And the pizza wasn't an accident either. Pizza was cheap to make, it had huge profit margins, and crucially, it took time to cook, which meant that while families sat waiting for their food, the kids would wander off and pump quarters into the arcade games. Pizza was almost a Trojan horse for the real business, the games. But Bushnell wanted one more thing, a spectacle, something to make the place unforgettable. So he turned to the technology he loved, robotics. He decided to fill his restaurant with animatronic characters, singing, joking robotic animals that would put on a live show, a Disney-style attraction, but in a pizza place in a strip mall. And at the center of it all, he needed a mascot. Now, here's a detail most people never knew, and it happened almost entirely by accident. The character was originally meant to be a coyote, but when the animatronic costume Bushnell had ordered finally showed up, it was the wrong animal. It wasn't a coyote at all, it was a rat. So Bushnell just rolled with it, and wanted to name the whole place after a wisecracking character he called Rick Rat. His marketing team was horrified. A giant rat is about the last thing you want people picturing anywhere near food. So they softened it into something friendlier, with a brand new name, Chuck E. Cheese. A pizza empire built around a rat, born from a costume mix-up. And somehow, it worked. In 1977, in San Jose, California, Nolan Bushnell opened the very first Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater. There had never been anything quite like it, and kids went absolutely insane for it. To a child in the late 1970s, walking into a Chuck E. Cheese was like stepping into the future. It was loud, it was bright, it was alive. Bushnell had done it again. He had invented an entirely new kind of business, and he wanted to put one in every town in America. And the beating heart of the whole experience was that robot band. Up on a stage behind the tables, the animatronic characters would lurch to life. Chucky himself on the microphone, backed by a crew of robotic animal bandmates. They would sing, they would crack jokes, their heads swiveling and their mouths clacking open and shut in time with the music. To a 5-year-old in 1980, it was the single most amazing thing they had ever seen. To some of those same kids today, the memory is just a little bit haunting. So he moved fast. Pizza Time Theater began expanding, opening locations and selling franchises, racing to plant the Chuck E. Cheese flag across the country. The empire was taking shape. But that breakneck expansion would soon create a monster, a rival that would eventually swallow the whole thing. And it started with a man named Robert Brock. Brock got involved with Bushnell's company as a major franchisee. He was supposed to help open a whole batch of Pizza Time theaters, but the relationship soured. The two sides had a falling out. And instead of just walking away, Brock did something audacious. He started his own, nearly identical, competing chain. He called it Showbiz Pizza Place. Same concept exactly. Pizza, arcade games, animatronic animal band. But for his robots, Brock used a different creation, a band called the Rock-afire Explosion. So now there were two robot pizza empires, born from the same idea, run by two men who had become enemies. It got messy. There were lawsuits between the companies over the concept and the split. For a few years in the early 1980s, America had not one, but two competing chains of pizza restaurants staffed by singing robot animals, fighting each other for the nation's birthday parties. It sounds absurd. It was completely real. Two rival empires of singing robots, born from the very same idea, suing each other while families just wanted somewhere to take the kids on a Saturday afternoon. And here is the thing nobody saw coming at the time. One of these two enemies was going to end up swallowing the other one whole. And for a moment, both were riding high. The arcade boom was at its peak. Quarters were pouring in. Bushnell was expanding aggressively, planning location after location, convinced he was building the next great American empire. But a storm was coming for the entire video game industry, and Pizza Time Theater was built right in its path. In 1983, the video game market didn't just slow down, it crashed. The great video game crash of 1983 was an earthquake. The arcade craze that had minted fortunes suddenly cratered. Players got bored, the market was flooded with junk, and revenue across the industry collapsed. And Chuck E. Cheese, a business built almost entirely on arcade games, got hammered. Combine that crash with Bushnell's aggressive, debt-fueled overexpansion, and the math simply stopped working. The empire that had grown so fast suddenly couldn't pay its bills. And in 1984, the unthinkable happened. Nolan Bushnell's Pizza Time Theater, the original, the creator, the one that started it all, filed for bankruptcy. And now comes the twist that makes this whole story so strange. Because guess who was standing right there, ready to pick up the pieces? His rival, Robert Brock, the man who had broken away and built Showbiz Pizza. In 1984, Showbiz Pizza bought the bankrupt Pizza Time Theater. Let that sink in. The copycat bought the original. The student devoured the master. The empire that Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari, had dreamed up and built was now owned by the very rival he had gone to war with. The two companies merged into one. For a while, the combined business ran both brands side by side. Showbiz restaurants with the Rock-afire Explosion and Chuck E. Cheese restaurants with their own band. Two sets of robots, two identities under one corporate roof. But that wouldn't last. Over the late 1980s and into the 1990s, the company made a decision: unify everything under a single name. And the name they chose to keep wasn't Showbiz, it was Chuck E. Cheese. So one by one, the Showbiz restaurants were converted. And the Rock-afire Explosion, that rival animatronic band beloved by a generation of kids, was quietly retired, torn out and replaced with Chucky and his crew. An entire robotic world was erased. If you've ever wondered why there are people online today who are weirdly, deeply obsessed with the Rock-afire Explosion, this is why. It's grief for a robot band that got deleted from history. By the 1990s, the war was over. There was only one robot pizza king left standing: Chuck E. Cheese. And for the next 2 decades, it would utterly dominate one of the most reliable markets on Earth, the American childhood birthday party. And think about how staggeringly valuable that market really is. Every single year, millions of American kids have a birthday. And every one of those birthdays is a party that has to happen somewhere. For 2 solid decades, when a parent asked themselves where to throw it, one name lit up before all the others. Chuck E. Cheese didn't just own a slice of that business. For a long time, they basically were the business. For a long time, business was extraordinary. If you were a kid in the 90s or 2000s, Chuck E. Cheese wasn't just a restaurant. It was the ultimate destination, the place you begged your parents to take you, where you stuffed your face with pizza, drowned in a ball pit, and traded a mountain of tickets for a tiny plastic toy that broke in the car on the way home. And that ticket system was a quiet stroke of genius. You spent real money to play the games. The games spat out paper tickets, and the tickets bought prizes. Prizes almost always worth a tiny fraction of what you would spend to win them. The kids didn't care even a little. Those tickets felt like treasure. It was essentially a miniature casino built for 8-year-olds, and for decades, it printed money. Chuck E. Cheese had a genuine monopoly on magic, and the company knew exactly how valuable that birthday business was. They even pioneered a now famous safety system, the matching hand stamps and wristbands, so that no child could ever leave with the wrong adult. A smart, reassuring touch for nervous parents. But slowly, quietly, the ground began to shift underneath them. And this time, there was no rival, no crash, no single villain. Just the world moving on. Think about what made Chuck E. Cheese special in the first place. Arcade games. In 1980, if a kid wanted to play incredible video games, they had to leave the house and find an arcade. Chuck E. Cheese had the best arcade in town. That was the entire draw. But then home consoles got better and cheaper and amazing. And then came the real killer, the smartphone, the tablet. Suddenly, every single kid in America was carrying a more powerful arcade in their pocket than Chuck E. Cheese could ever fit on its floor. The core reason to make the trip just evaporated, and the brands started to feel dated. The animatronics that once looked like the future now looked a little creepy, a little worn, a little sad. The internet filled up with viral videos of chaotic Chuck E. Cheese parties, parents brawling, fights breaking out, and there were those persistent rumors that the restaurants reassembled uneaten slices into fresh pizzas. Rumors the company has always firmly denied, but that stuck to the brand like grease. The magic was curdling into a punchline. Chuck E. Cheese was becoming a place people remembered fondly but didn't actually want to visit anymore. And a brand that runs on nostalgia but not on foot traffic is a brand in serious trouble. Then, in 2014, came the move that would leave the company dangerously exposed. The private equity giant Apollo Global Management bought Chuck E. Cheese's parent company in a deal valued at around $950 million. Here's the thing about that kind of deal. It was a leveraged buyout, which often means the company itself gets saddled with the debt used to buy it. So at the exact moment Chuck E. Cheese needed to be light on its feet to survive a changing world, it was instead strapped with a heavy weight of debt around its neck. The chain limped through the 2010s, remodeling stores, tweaking the menu, fighting to stay relevant against a generation of kids who simply did not need it the way their parents had. It was wounded, in debt, and slowing down. And then, in 2020, the entire world shut its doors. The COVID-19 pandemic was a perfectly aimed bullet for a business like Chuck E. Cheese. Its whole model was cramming crowds of children into a loud indoor room to share pizza and mash the same arcade buttons. In a pandemic, that wasn't just bad business, it was forbidden. Birthday parties vanished overnight. The locations went dark. For a company already buried under debt and already fading, it was the final blow. In June of 2020, the parent company of Chuck E. Cheese filed for bankruptcy, weighed down by more than $1 billion in debt. Now, unlike Blockbuster, Chuck E. Cheese didn't completely vanish. It managed to claw its way through bankruptcy, shed a huge chunk of its debt, and survive under new ownership. The lights came back on, the doors reopened. Technically, the empire lived, but survival came at a haunting cost. Because to modernize, to feel fresh to a generation of kids raised on screens, Chuck E. Cheese made a decision that broke a lot of grown-up hearts. They started tearing out the animatronics. The singing robot band, Chucky and his crew up on that stage. The exact thing Nolan Bushnell had dreamed up back in 1977. The spectacle, the wonder, the entire soul of the place was being unplugged. Location by location, the robots came down, replaced with dance floors, giant TV screens, and digital displays. A more modern look, a cheaper one too. And people noticed. When word got out that the animatronics were being pulled, there was a genuine wave of grief online. Grown adults openly mourning the robot band of their childhood, signing petitions to save them, even tracking down and buying up the discarded robots to rescue them from the scrap heap. It turned out those creepy singing machines meant far, far more to people than anyone in a corporate boardroom had ever realized. And so today, Chuck E. Cheese still exists. You can still go. You can still get the pizza and the tickets and the games. But in most places, the robots that made it magic are gone, hauled away, sold off, or sitting in a warehouse somewhere. The empire, built by the father of Atari, is still breathing, but the thing that made it special has quietly been switched off. So what is the real lesson of Chuck E. Cheese? It isn't a simple story of a company that died. It's something stranger, and maybe sadder. It's a story about how the entire world a business was built for can disappear right out from under it. Chuck E. Cheese was the answer to a question kids eventually stopped asking. Once the magic of an arcade could fit in your pocket, the whole reason to make the trip was gone. The company survived by shedding its debt, and, in the end, shedding its soul, trading the wonder that built it for screens that might keep it alive a little longer. Nolan Bushnell gave the world two revolutions, the video game and the robot wonderland, where a generation of kids first fell in love with them. And here's the strangest part of all. The video game is what conquered the world. And in the end, the video game is exactly what killed the wonderland he built to celebrate it.